Welcome back to the Voice of Truth. Jim here. It is good to be with you. I'm glad you came back to see what we've been talking about here on this Friday. Come and see. We're in the Gospel of John. Jesus finds Philip. Philip is excited. He runs off and finds Nathanael. And he tells Nathanael, we found him whom Moses wrote about and the prophets wrote about, this Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Nathanael says, can any good thing come out of Nazareth? Philip says, come and see. And here we are. Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him. Jesus saw Nathanael. That's what we've been talking about all week. Jesus saw him, not a disgusting, wretched sinner. He saw him and he said, surely here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. There's something happens when we are deeply seen, deeply known, deeply named, and in that is great acceptance. You see? There's a verse here in Matthew. I remember Malcolm brought this out one time, and I was just amazed at this verse in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 9. See if I can find it in this Bible. Matthew 9:9. As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man called Matthew sitting in the tax collector's office, and he said to him, follow me. And he got up and followed him. That's just a verse, man. We read it, okay, boom, there it is, and let's just go on. But let me just give you just a brief history right here of this Matthew character. Matthew had another name, Levi. Now both of these are Jewish names, but maybe he goes by Matthew so that they could forget about, because he was Levi, he was a publican, he was a tax collector. Now, let me give you just a teeny bit of a little bit of history in this kind of scene here that I kind of, we live in a society today. Everybody wants to be seen. They don't really want to be seen. They want to be looked at. Or maybe they want to be seen. I don't know. You be the judge. But I mean, we got purple hair and red hair. We got tattoos. We got piercings. We got everything that walks out in the public. And it's a cry from the core of the people that say, somebody see me. Please, somebody look at me. Now, Matthew is setting here. Let me get back over here to this Matthew's gospel here. Jesus went on from there and he saw Matthew sitting in the tax collector's office in the receipt of customs, the King James says. See, the publicans, and Matthew or Levi was a publican. They had houses and booths built for them, like a toll booth, at the foot of bridges or the mouth of rivers and by the sea. And they had an old saying, so that all that pass by will learn of me. They will see me, You're going to have to stop and you're going to have to pay this tax. You're going to have to pay this toll here. If you're going to get to the other side, man, you're going to have to pay this tax. I want everybody to look at me. You're going to have to pay homage to me. And here's Matthew, but Jesus sees a man. Jesus saw a man. Oh my goodness. Let's go to Luke's gospel here real quick. I'm losing my place here all the way around. Let's go to Luke's gospel. Matthew, Mark, Luke. Luke's gospel, chapter 22 here, just a few pages back. And verse 54 through 62. I believe this is right. Luke 22. Now they arrested him and led him away. and brought him to the house of the high priest. But Peter was following at a distance. This is the arrest and trial, the mock trial of Jesus. Peter was following at a distance. After they kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter was sitting among them, and a slave woman, seeing him as he sat in the firelight, staring at him, said, "This man was with him as well." But he denied it, saying, "I don't know him, woman." A little later, another person saw him and said, "You are one of them too." But Peter said, "Man, I am not." And after about an hour had passed, some other man began to insist, saying, "Certainly this man also was with him, for he too was a Galilean." But Peter said, "Man, I do not know what you're talking about." And immediately while he was speaking, a rooster crowed. And here's the verse 61. This verse has always broken my heart. "And then the Lord turned and looked at Peter." The Lord turned and looked at Peter. You know, Peter remembered the words of the Lord, "Before the cock crows, you'll deny me 3 times." And he went out and he wept bitterly. But the Lord turned and looked at him. He's in the middle of a trial here. Jesus is being punched. He's spit on. His beard is pulled out. This trial is going on hour after hour in the middle of the night here, all the way up until the morning time. Peter, you know, the disciples, they love Jesus. They want to follow Jesus. He's just made this bold statement. Hey, Jesus says, "Everybody will deny me." Peter says, "I won't, man. I'm going with you to death." We've all said that. We've all said, "Man, I'm gonna really do it this time." But Jesus looked on him. I mean, how does that verse go? Jesus turned and looked on him, and that word there in blepo, that's the word looked upon. It means discern clearly. And I got to ask you, what kind of look was this? What kind of look was this? And I'm going to tell you what, guys, me as a dad, I have looked at my children when they've done something horribly wrong. I've looked at them with disgust. I've looked at them with utter disappointment. I have to admit it. And hopefully they will be better parents than me when it's their turn. But I have looked at them with utter disgust. And you know what? I meant it. I told you Wednesday or Monday, whenever it was, that we have selective vision. We choose what we see and how we look. Okay? But I want to tell you something here. I want to tell you something, and hear this. This turning and looking at Peter was not a look of disgust. Get that. The father who sees the prodigal son coming back was not a look of disgust. Jesus seeing Nathanael in the story here was not a look of disgust. The woman with the issue of blood who touched the hem of his garment, and Jesus turned to see who touched him. He turned to see, to discern, was not a look of "How dare you, filthy woman." This was not a look of disgust. This was not a look of anger. This was not a look of wrath or resentment. This was a look of concern, of earnestness. This was a look of great love and great mercy and great power along with it. It was not only a signal to Peter to remind him of what he had said, but it was a melting look. A melting look. I'm using that word melting because Peter will use that very word in his epistle about the elements melting or the fire burning them away. He knew firsthand, and it's this look that does that. This look that melts away. It was a means of convincing and humbling him. It was, how can I say it this way? It was, Peter, in your utter failure, the worst moment of your life, Peter, this very moment is your worst moment. Of all the moments that you've had in your life, Peter, this is the worst one, and I am here, and you did this in front of me, but I love you more than you could ever know. And Peter, I want you to know that. This doesn't change our relationship at all. Man, I love you so much, Peter. You have no idea. And Peter, it's okay. It's okay. I'm going to tell you, it's the goodness of God that leads towards repentance. We read in Revelation, when we were doing our Revelation study, we went through all these trumpets and vials and all of that. And at the end of it said, and they repented not. It took something else. It took the two witnesses, didn't it? Took the two witnesses. In Mark's gospel, let me go back to Mark's gospel. And to show you this great concern that Jesus had, Mark's Gospel, chapter 16, Jesus has risen from the dead. Let me find this verse. But he said to them, do not be amazed. You are looking for Jesus, the Nazarene, who has been crucified. He is risen. He is not here. See, here is the place where they laid him. Now, these were the angels that was talking to Mary. But go tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you. And as I was going through this stuff, I thought, man, that's so significant. Galilee, Jeff Arnold, man, you preached such a great sermon on this at P-Patch, Galilee. But what is Galilee? You know what Galilee is? Galilee was the countryside. Let me say, Galilee was just all of these disciples. Most of them, they're from Galilee. Matthew, we saw Levi. He's a publican, but Galilee, that's going back into common life. And this is what he is saying. Go back to the commonalities. You're trying to do all of these things. But lo, Paul, we read this great mystery that Christ is everywhere. Man, he can be seen in everything. Just go back there. I told you, you'll see me. You will see him in others. If I could say that, that's a whole nother sermon. But go tell my disciples and Peter, I'm going to, as I told you, I'm going to Galilee. And Jesus, he had a choice when he looked at Peter. Jesus had a choice when he looked at Nathanael. And I wonder what would have happened if Jesus said to Peter, you loser, I told you you're no good for nothing. I made a mistake in picking you. Or if Jesus, when he saw Nathanael, here's a man who is governed by his own prejudice, or here's a man who is careless in his speech, or here's a man who sits around, he's passive, he's non-committal, just waiting for life to happen to him. Any one of those things, they might be true, but Jesus looks past all of that to see an honesty, to see a guilelessness, a purity of thought and intention that makes up the core of Nathanael's character. He knew Peter's character. Maybe the other qualities are there as well, but would Nathanael's heart melt in wonder and joy of Jesus saw and named those first? Or would Nathanael withdraw in shame? See, Jesus, back here in John's gospel here, Jesus names the quality he wants to bless and cultivate in Nathanael. The quality that makes him an image bearer of God. What would happen if we, you and me, began to see as Jesus sees? He come to open, give sight to the blind, to see as he sees. If beneath the anger we saw a passion for justice. If beneath the shyness we saw a hunger for connection. If beneath the bossiness we saw a great capacity for leadership. If beneath this loudmouth banter we saw a prophetic truth-telling. If beneath the quietness we saw a gift for reflection. If beneath the recklessness we saw courage. All of us are more than the worst thing that we've ever done, Peter. Each of us benefits from a second look, a third look, a fourth look, on and on. And to offer that second look, that deeper, kinder, more penetrating look is grace. Remember in Revelation, John sees him and his eyes are a flame of fire, flame of fire. I go back and I'm referencing this flame of fire that slew the men that threw Daniel into the fire. I read in Hebrews, they don't make us ministers of flame of fire, but the first time I see this flame of fire on the scene, it's this bush, and the Lord speaks. The Lord appeared to Moses in a flame of fire in the bush, and behold, the bush is not consumed. This flame of fire here, let me go to Revelation here real quick. The book of Revelation, chapter 19. I love this. Chapter 19, verse 11. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat on him was faithful and true, and righteousness he judges and makes war, and his eyes were a flame of fire. There it is, his eyes are a flame of fire. His eyes are a flame of fire, and on his head are many crowns, and it is a name written on him which no one knows except himself. He is clothed with a robe dipped in blood. Let me ask you a question. How did he get blood on his robe? You know, you go back to Isaiah. Who is this coming up from Edom with dyed garments of Bozrah? Where did he get these? You see, we're talking about war. He's not slaying his enemies here. This isn't somebody else's blood. This is his own blood. This is the blood from the cross here. You see, this blood, the crucifixion, this is his blood. He's looking at us. This is the look that comes to us and says, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. This is the look that melts. This is the look, I'm going to tell you, this is the eyes of fire. Fire melts. In other words, as Rob Bell says, and you should get that book, Love Wins. It's the look of love that melts the heart. It's the gracious vision of Jesus, and it's the same vision we're called to practice in a world that too often leads with judgment and condemnation. Is there anything that feels lonelier than the experience of being unseen or dismissed? Is there anything more life-giving than being seen for who we really are deep down beneath our fragile defenses? Let me give you some verses. I know Friday here, a little bit longer here. Let's go back to Mark's Gospel real quick. Bear with me as we're a little longer on this Friday here. Mark 5. And verse 32, who touched my garments? We went over that. Jesus turned to see who had touched him. Let's go to Luke's Gospel. I love this. Luke chapter 1, verse 25. Now after these days, his wife Elizabeth became pregnant, and she kept herself in seclusion for 5 months, saying, that's verse 24, verse 25, this is the way the Lord has dealt with me in the days when he looked with favor upon me. He looked with favor upon me to take away my disgrace from among the people. Stay in Luke's Gospel, chapter 19. Chapter 19 and verse 5. Jesus sees Zacchaeus. Jesus looks and sees Zacchaeus in the tree. It says he looked up and said, Zacchaeus, hurry, come down, for today I must come to your house. And then in Luke chapter 21, Jesus sees this little widow put in her 2 mites. He looked, he sees. See, this invitation here in this gospel to come and see is an invitation to leave our comfortable vantage points and dare to believe that maybe we have erred in our original judgments. Erred maybe in our certainties about each other and about God and about the world. To come and see is to approach all of life with grace-filled curiosity. To believe that we are holy mysteries to each other, worthy of further exploration, getting to know each other. To come and see is to enter into the joy of being deeply seen and deeply known, and to have the very best that lies hidden beneath called out and called for. Colossians, Paul writes, your life is hidden with Christ in God. I mean, epiphanies, these are funny things, hard to explain outside of our own lives. And I wonder how in later years that Nathaniel, he tells his friends about first meeting Jesus. I wonder how they react. And then he says, no, you don't get it. He saw me. Don't you get it? He really saw me. And then I just knew. I mean, he's telling the truth whether anybody else gets it or not. And it's because Jesus sees who Nathaniel is that Nathaniel is able to see who Jesus is. And that's what he ends up with here. Nathaniel said, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. It's when we have been seen in a profoundly personal, compassionate way that we have found ourselves able to see others. It's when we have been loved right down to the core that we find the capacity to love others as God loves us. So I'm going to finish right here. What would Jesus see? And as the woman at the well so eloquently said, come and see. God bless you all. Hey guys, Jim here. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you really enjoyed it. I really love bringing these things to you. I just wanted to say, if you really liked it, drop a like. Man, that really helps us out a lot. Hit the share button. Subscribe if you want to get notified when they're coming out. We come out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as of right now. We got more teachings on rhythmsofgracecommunityfellowship.com. You can find us right there. On there you'll find all the links to our podcast on Voice of Truth and Rhythms of Grace Community Fellowship. And it'll also take you to our YouTube for these channels, rhythmsofgracecommunityfellowship.com. You can find everything right there. Again, thank you. Leave us a comment, hit subscribe. Guys, again, thank you so much for watching this. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next time. God bless.